Diana Gaspard-Clark, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Mr. Wayne Cupin, Director, Education, Facilities Planning and Procurement Division, other executives of the Ministry of Education, members of the media, and those watching us via TTT, listening to us online, a very good afternoon. My name is Visham Ramsewak. I'm a member of the Corporate Communications Division of the Ministry of Education. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our press conference on infrastructural operations at the Ministry of Education. The format this afternoon, a very simple one. The Honorable Minister is going to make an opening statement, and we will take it from there. Members of the media, when it's time for question, the regular procedure, identify your media house, identify yourself, and ask your questions. A microphone will be provided. Ladies and gentlemen, the pleasure is mine this afternoon to hand you over to Dr. the Honorable Nian Gaspie-Dolly, Minister of Education. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very kindly, Visham, and it is our pleasure to welcome the members of the media to the Ministry of Education and to welcome our viewing and listening audience. As indicated, I'm here with the executive team of the Ministry of Education, and our aim today is simply to give an update based on the request of the Cabinet to the national public on the infrastructural agenda of the Ministry of Education. This is always a very important topic, very newsworthy, and so there are some updates and developments that the Cabinet believes that the national public should be aware of. The first thing I want to indicate, as I've said before, is that the Ministry of Education is constantly involved in the work of infrastructure repair to our schools. We have over 800 schools in the country, public schools, which means government and government assisted, 208 ECCE centers, 476 primary, 134 secondary, and 12 special schools. In terms of the ages of these schools, I want to remind the public that we have 53 schools over the age of 100, some as old as 150 years old. We have 195 schools between the ages of 60 and 99 years. 125 schools over the age of 40, between 40 and 59 years old. So we do have a significant number of our school stock that is aging. And that requires us, on any given day, to deal with infrastructural issues at multiple schools. Our ministry has a system whereby we monitor school infrastructure on a real-time basis, and there are a number of persons involved in this discussion to ensure that when issues arise, we are able to treat with them as quickly and efficiently as possible, with the aim always to reduce any downtime or loss of educational continuity for our students. Our facilities department, they are our first responders, and they work closely with MTS, who is our project manager with respect to infrastructure. There are some schools at which MTS can do the basic in-house repair, and as many incidences as can be handled in that way, we do it, because that's the most immediate way to deal with infrastructural repair. However, there are a significant number of issues that arise every day that cannot be dealt with in-house. And so that's where MTS steps in to procure a contractor who would deal with the repair on behalf of the Ministry of Education. Depending on the severity of the issue, that would take different times to be able to deal with, and in some cases, it may require school closure. In some cases, it may require rotation of schools. And in some cases, the school is able to operate normally, even if the infrastructural repair is taking place. We also have an online database program where principals can input their infrastructural needs at schools. It's called SIMS for short. However, what happens on a daily basis is that the ministry is so involved in dealing with emergency work that we are unable to deal with some of the other very critical and important issues that do arise at schools. And when I say emergency work, We deal with issues that can close a school and result in a loss of educational continuity. So, for example, sewer, plumbing, electrical, and issues like spalling concrete. We deal with those things very urgently as they can result in the closure of schools. So our ability to deal with some of the important and critical issues that happen around the country in schools is limited by the fact that we have an aging school stock and that we are constantly involved in a lot of emergency works to ensure that schools remain open. So we have taken steps to undertake comprehensive repair at some of our schools. Some of our older schools and some of the schools which are in really serious condition and need that comprehensive approach. Because if we don't do that, what we end up with is fixing and patching, and we are always in a state of continuous repair to some schools, and it really gets us nowhere. So we have issued comprehensive repairs at 27 schools thus far, and I'm speaking from 2021 to present, at 27 of our secondary schools at a cost of $175 million. We have just approved today at Cabinet 15 more schools that are going to receive this comprehensive repair program, and that is at a cost of $236 million. So that carries us to a total of 42 secondary schools where we are going to expend $411 million. 27 are ongoing, and we have just approved today 15 more at a cost of $236 million. Emergency repair that I would have referred to earlier. Since 2021, we have expended over $600 million in emergency repairs to schools all over the nation. In this fiscal, we are predicting another $300 million to be spent, and this is the minimum figure that will be spent in emergency work at our schools. And I referred to sewer, plumbing, electrical, spalling concrete. These are the kinds of emergencies that we see coming through on a daily basis that we must deal with, or else our schools can close. So in total, we have expended over $600 million since 2021 in emergency works, and we are predicting to spend another $300 million minimum in this fiscal on that. Therefore, if we look at what has been spent in planned work, and that's the work at the 27 schools that's ongoing and the 15 schools that's going to start in this fiscal. And if we look at the emergency work that takes place between 2021 and 2023, we are speaking about in excess of $1 billion that has been spent between 2021 and 23 in school infrastructural repair. I also want to mention that we are also dealing with the completion of unfinished schools. And allow me to just again explain the circumstance that we find ourselves in at present. Between 2010 and 2015, there were over 100 contracts signed for school construction, a school construction program that would have expended over $3 billion. However, when you are embarking on such a program, as you would see we are doing with the 27 schools and the 15 schools, and that is just repair, you must have a funding source. $3 billion is very close to the annual budget of the Ministry of Education. So there is no way the ministry can absorb that in just recurrent or development project funding. That is something, a construction program is something you must allocate funding for, whether it is loan funding or so, and that's the usual way it's done. However, that was not done in this case. Therefore, by 2015, when the contracts had been signed, there was no funding to sustain the contracts, and that resulted in the contractors making multiple claims. The government has paid out over $400 million in claims, and we have over 80 schools that remained to be finished. Therefore, the government had to find a way to complete these schools in a sustainable manner that would allow us to not only deal with schools, but all of the other demands that the government has revenue for. Therefore, we embarked on a program, a phased program of completion for these schools, and we would have completed $400 million worth of repairs of completion, and that would be 13 schools. So of these schools, we have completed 13 at a cost of $400 million. We are now completing 7, and that's ongoing. We are expecting to open at least 4 of these schools by the end of this calendar year, and that's another 400 million that has been allocated in phase 2. So of the incomplete schools that we met, we have completed 13 at a cost of 400 million. We are completing now another 7 at a cost of 400 million, and we will embark on another phase of school completion very soon, and that will be the general cost that we'll be seeking loan funding for to do another batch of these unfinished schools. So we finish them bit by bit until they are complete. So if we look at what's been happening since 2021, planned work, and that's the work on the schools, the comprehensive repair, emergency work, those are the emergencies that come up every day that we must deal with in order to allow schools to remain open, and the funding that has been dealt with in terms of completing unfinished schools. We are looking at an expenditure of 1.8 billion between 2021 and present, dealing simply with school infrastructure. With that kind of investment, that level of expenditure, the success of our students is critical, and that's why we take that investment in education generally, and more specifically in terms of school infrastructure. Because even as we deal with student achievement, which is what we want to deal with, it's important that we deal with our curricular issues, yes, but we also must deal with the mortar and concrete issues of the school infrastructure. So in addition to the school infrastructure that I have just explained how we are investing, we are also dealing with the student achievement, student and discipline, digital transformation, just to name a few. And you would have seen us going out to the public in September in our EduTalk series, speaking about all that we have been doing in education and how we are working to transform education. So our remedial education program is ongoing. We have 106 schools of focus, and we would have spoken to the public at length about what we are doing in these schools. We would have looked at our SEA results, our CXC results, that's the CSEC Form 5 level, the CAPE Form 6 level results in 2023, and we would have seen that those results have shown significant improvement, and we are very happy for this on behalf of our students, our teachers, and our parents, and our nation in general. And we would have put out press releases to the public showing the increases in our SEA, CSEC, and CAPE results. Our cultural transformation program, that is ongoing. That is a program where we are implementing certain changes in school operations and curriculum over 2 years. We are in the first year of that program, and next year we will be continuing to deal with the curricular changes, the timetable changes, as we seek to inculcate the correct and positive values, attitudes, and behaviors in our students so that we are creating or developing the ideal Trinidad and Tobago citizens. With regard to digital transformation, we would have indicated that our secondary schools, all of them have been outfitted with Wi-Fi in the common areas, expanded into the areas that we need, and we are embarking on this project with the primary schools. iGovTT would be our partner in this, and so they should be going out to tender very soon to expand the Wi-Fi in our primary schools so that at all our schools we would have the necessary connectivity to support the digital transformation aspects that must take place there. We would have delivered over 71,000 laptops between 2020 and 2023, and we have funding in this fiscal to again, provide laptops for those who require the government's assistance to do so, as well as our teachers and our staff within the ministry, because the digital transformation goes much further than simply in the classroom. It is a systemic change, and it also speaks to how the ministry itself operates, and therefore laptops must be provided for all of that. We have also been working with iGovTT to provide at least 2,500 high-spec laptops for our school laboratories, where we are increasing the e-testing. CXC has been working with us to increase the number of students doing the e-testing, and that, of course, introduces a certain level of flexibility with regards to examination, reduce the cost, and it introduces resilience, because if there's ever a system or situation like COVID where our students have issues taking physical exams, then e-testing allows that resilience into the system. And so we are purchasing as well laptops to replace the school stock that would have been distributed to teachers over the COVID period. And iGovTT is working with us on that, and tenders, again, should soon be out for those devices. So the digital transformation is also taking place. So not only school infrastructural investment, but also investment in our students, remedial education, cultural transformation, and investment in changing the way education, the business of education is done, not only in the classrooms, but also in our head offices and all over the ministry with regards to digital transformation. We have consulted with our various stakeholders. We have had their input, and we have revised our school discipline matrix to deal with the behavior of our students. In addition to that, in the remedial education program, a big part of that has been employing school social workers, guidance counselors, restorative practice facilitators to help our students in the schools where we have the most serious issues within discipline and a high level of infractions. We have adopted a no-tolerance approach to violence in our schools, and our school discipline matrix speaks to that. And it's not only punitive, but as I have said, we have hired staff, additional staff, to help with the transformative nature of our school discipline. However, we have provisions in the law as well as in the discipline matrix to deal with students who, despite our best efforts, are not transforming their behavior. And I want to, as I have said before, to all parents, all teachers, all students, if with our best efforts we are not getting that transformation, then we have to consider the fact that other students are being disrupted. And if students in our schools are not transforming and are not adhering to our discipline matrix, then there are provisions to remove them from that environment and to assist them in a different way on the basis of what is available from the government. So, for students that have to be removed from our school system, students who have to be expelled, after all efforts have been made, we have already approved compulsory registration into MyLAT for such students, and we do, as the Ministry of Education, reach out to the Ministry of Youth Development on an individual basis, informing them of students that require their attention in this regard. We also reach out to the Ministry of Social Development and the Ministry of National Security, informing them that these students have been expelled and require their assistance in terms of family counseling, in terms of any attention they can give, and exposure to programs available from the government. So it is not as though we are casting these students aside. Even though they are coming out of the Ministry of Education system, there are other provisions coming from the government to deal with these students and to assist them in ways that the Ministry of Education cannot, so that they can lead productive lives at the end. So again, parents, we are advising that the Ministry of Education cannot simply sit by and allow students to disrupt the education at schools. There are other students and there are teachers who need to have a safe environment conducive to learning. And we will do everything in our power to ensure that that environment is maintained. So, even with all of our faults, our challenges, our nation's education system continues to produce excellence. And I take this opportunity to congratulate our students who have been top ranked at the CSEC and CAPE 2023 examinations. Again, we would have put out a press release identifying these students and congratulating them. And we want to indicate that 2023 has been one of our best years in terms of our regional performance. And when we combine this with the achievements of our students at the SCA level, we indicate that even though we do have challenges that we are working on surmounting, our system continues to do well in terms of producing students with excellence. So as the Ministry of Education continues to do the work of educational and cultural transformation, as we continue to pursue the development of the ideal Trinidad and Tobago citizen, we do so because we understand our role in providing citizens that will assist in achieving our National Developmental Agenda Vision 2030, and we look forward to partnering with our parents, our teachers, the corporate Trinidad and Tobago, and our nation at large in pursuit of this goal. I want to thank you for the pleasure of your attention and invite the media to give us any questions that they may have at this time.
Hi, good afternoon, Minister. Shane Superville from Guardian Media. You would have touched on the performance of students for the exams for this year gone by. What has the ministry done differently that could be attributed to such an improvement in performance? And is there any plans, or are there any further plans to keep this momentum going into the new year?
So one of the things that have contributed greatly to our students doing well as we look over the past 5 years would be, of course, their return to physical classes. As you know, this was fraught with different opinions. At the time, we were one of the nations that kept our children away from school for the longest, if you look at the global averages. However, our students came back to school very safely in the last academic year. We also instituted our remedial education program at that time. So we would have introduced the Vacation Vision program, and following the vacation, we would have introduced in our 80 primary schools of focus the after-school tuition program. So this is where we offered what would traditionally be called lessons to our students in their schools for free, so that our students who had the most challenges could have immersed themselves in more educational opportunity using the time that they had. We also provided a meal. So after school, there was a meal from the school feeding program so that they were in a frame of mind to do extra classes. So it's using the time that was usually downtime to allow our students more educational opportunity for free that could increase their performance. And when we look and track the performance of the students in those 80 schools, we saw improvement at those levels. So it's a combination of the face-to-face classes being reinstituted and putting measures such as those in place to assist our students. We also trained our teachers in 106 schools of focus in remedial math, English, and writing, so that those teachers could meet the needs of the students, because we are dealing with learning loss. And it's going to take us a while to deal with that. So in addition to offering more educational opportunity, we also are helping our teachers to help our students in a better way. And we are seeing those combined efforts reaping success.
You also touched on the issue of school and discipline. Now, recently, Police Commissioner Erla here with Christopher would have sort of touched on that as well, in the sense that she said a lot of times poor parenting is really the result of this, and her as a police commissioner only deals with it at the back end or when it's too late at times. Just wanted you to weigh in on this based on what you would have heard from some school supervisors, permanent secretaries, even teachers. Do you think, or are you pleased with the level of participation from some parents for the year so far?
Yes, we are, and we also note the efforts of other arms of the government to assist in this regard. So you would have seen the Ministry of Social Development recently have launching a parenting program. These are the things that are required, because sometimes the public believes the Ministry of Education can do it all, but we cannot. We do need the input of the other arms of the government to assist us, and also civil society. So I am satisfied that we are seeing other persons coming in to assist our parents where that is required. And yes, in many cases, when we look at the behavior of our children and we look at what's behind it, there are aspects of parenting that really weigh in very heavily on how the students are acting out in the school. And that's why for the schools of focus, where we have real challenges with discipline, we have hired more school social workers and guidance counselors to assist the parents in many cases, because we have parent conferences, they do home visits, to assist them in being better parents and meeting the needs of their children, the varied needs of their children, so that we can transform the children's behavior.
Hi, Kijan Haynes, Guardian Media. I want to tack on to my colleague's question there. You did also touch on, you said compulsory registration into MyLAT. This also kind of goes back to what you had said in Parliament, that you were looking at compulsory national training or national service, was the word used, for certain for these issues. Legally, how does that work in terms of if a child, can you force a child into MyLAT? Legally, how does that framework work? How many people have been, how many students have been enrolled in this compulsory registration into MyLAT? And give me an idea, if you can, is it now that it's going to be with the no tolerance, is it going to be easier to suspend or expel students when they misbehave, given the example of the girl who was seen being disrespectful to the teacher and then she was quickly
The
expelled?
compulsory age of schooling is up to 16 years old. So those students who are under 16 years old, there is a mandatory, there's a law in place that they should be in school. So once you're under 16, then that should be an automatic enrollment into MyLAT. If you're over the age of 16, 16 or over, then the parents do have discretion in that regard, and so we do the work to encourage them. This agreement by Cabinet was very recent, so we would not have data at this time with regards to how many in the past, but we can certainly look at how many of them have taken up the offer to enroll in MyLAT based on the ages. What we find, however, many of the students that we are speaking about are either 16 or over 16. What you tend to see in terms of the pattern of misbehavior, it gets very, very strong in Form 3. A lot of students, by the time they reach Form 3, they are 16. And that also has impact on school dropouts because they reach that compulsory age and they make the decision to leave, and the state cannot force them at that time to stay in. We've also made some contact with Serval, because Serval can assist where we have students under the age of 16, and they can explore vocational forms of education depending on if they have to be expelled from the school based on their behavior and based on the fact that we have not been able to assist them in transforming that behavior despite our best efforts by the Student Support Services Department. So in terms of your question, is it easier to be expelled? It's not a matter of being easier. This expulsion provision was always in the law. However, what we are calling on principals to do, and on parents as well, is to enforce the student discipline matrix. In a lot of cases, principals may not want to go the distance of the process, meaning suspension, applying for extended suspension, and bringing it to the fore so that there's a record of the behavior. And what that does, it encourages the student misbehavior because they believe that they can misbehave without consequence. And in a lot of cases, when we see students reaching to the end point where they have to be expelled, it is because they feel that that will never happen to them. And so they continue with that behavior. But let me emphasize that the difference between the number of students who are suspended and the number of students who are expelled on any given year is huge. Most students, when the discipline matrix is enforced and they are suspended and they get into the hands of the student support services, are able to transform their behavior, are able to work with the parents and the school and so on to, adjust to the rules of the school and to ensure that they get to the end point, which is Form 5 for most of them and Form 6 for others. So most of that works. However, there are some students who, for one reason or the other, reach to that point of no return. And so it's not easier to suspend or to expel them. It is just that the discipline matrix is going to be enforced. And it's being enforced as we speak.
Just as a point of clarification, if you are expelled from one school, can you apply to another school, or is it automatically you try to get them into the MyLAT? So
Not another government or government-assisted school.
You can't go to another government school
No.
after.
Hi, good afternoon. Sonolala, TDT News. Minister, in terms of the emergency repairs on schools and so on, has any analysis done in terms of how many days were lost for students per school? Is it at an acceptable level?
We don't necessarily gather data like that. We are more focused on ensuring that the repairs are complete as quickly as possible so that we can get students back to school.
And just finally for me, in terms of the MyLAT, now that it's compulsory, somewhat to put some of these indisciplined students in MyLAT, how much would it need to be expanded? Is it twofold? Have you had discussions with the minister as well?
Again, the number of students that are expelled in any given year is really very small because most of the students who would get into the stream of student support, they are able to manage their and transform their behavior. So on any given year, for example, last year we expelled 3 students. This year it's a bit more. We are at I think it's about 10 or a little over 10 students. And so it's really not a huge number, and we don't intend it to be, because we do everything before this that will allow us to help these students at the point of their need and get them into their exams so that they come out at the end with what they came into school to be able to achieve.
Good afternoon, Melissa Maynard from the Trinidad Express newspaper. Minister, there were some concerns raised about the number of social workers towards to each school. Could you comment on whether that is a burnout for social workers and guidance counselors?
It depends on the school, and that is why usually the school social workers and guidance counselors would have been assigned to a cluster of schools. And that cluster would have been developed based on the caseload of different schools. So they may have 2 schools that have a high caseload and 2 schools that do not. However, when we identified the schools of focus, the schools that we wanted to put more resources into, we looked at the fact that the caseload would have been too much for our school social workers or guidance counselors, and that's why we hired more of them to focus on these schools. So that would have eased up the situation for all of the school social workers and guidance counselors, because automatically, with more staff, the caseload would have decreased. And we are looking closely at these schools of focus, how the students are responding, to know if we need to expand the number of school social workers and guidance counselors. But let me say this. In terms of the student support services, we have over 200 school social workers, 100 and something guidance counselors. So we have to look also at the management of that. That's one unit of the Ministry of Education. So we have to look at that as well. And what we are focusing on is early intervention, because in some cases, if we can intervene earlier in the school life of a child, then they don't reach the stage where they have to get the counseling and so on. Sometimes a parental conference with a principal and a teacher can address a matter, and that is why we are asking principals and teachers to enforce the school discipline matrix, because we can pick up on things earlier and it doesn't reach to the point where they have to now form a part of the caseload of the school social worker. So we are working on both ends, doing more staffing as well as working on the system of intervention so that we get that early intervention, which is critical, so that a situation doesn't have to get to the point where we have to assign a student to a school social worker and therefore increase the caseloads.
I know the repair program, I know you're telling us this because vacation is about to come upon us.
Oh, no, I'm telling you this because we just approved 15 schools at a cost of $286 million.
Well, great. So then that leads into my next question. Do you think you can make a lot of progress on this in the upcoming Christmas vacation? And there are a couple schools that are really bad. I remember St. George's is not even in St. George's. There was a school.
St. George's is being worked on now.
Okay. And there was another school in terms of, was it Aranguez, where the concrete fell on a
San Juan
student's
North.
head? San Juan, yes.
San Juan
You
North,
raised that
yeah.
as well. We've had a few, Mafikin, the school, there was a protest there. Gasparilla, there were protests. So in your opinion, what schools are the worst in terms of, and will they be able to be completed by the end of the vacation period, and how do you plan to fix those issues?
No, they will not be able to complete by the end of the vacation period because the work is extensive. And there will always be schools that come up into the public domain because social media is open now for everyone to put things on, and you will be able to see in practice exactly what I've been saying, that we have an aging school stock, and therefore on any given day, multiple schools have serious issues. So at this point in time, we have over 30 school projects ongoing. Gasparilla Secondary would have been one in the public domain. Work is still ongoing there. So it depends on the volume of work and the severity of the situation. So the schools that have been identified in these 15 schools approved today, that work will be ongoing for a couple of months. Of course, it's approval now, then you go to the procurement process, and once you procure the contractor, then work begins. So approval is today, but work does not begin today. So the work that begins now would be getting the contractor on board. You mentioned St. George's. That's one of the schools in the 27 schools that I've mentioned where work is ongoing. That's one of those schools because the work was so extensive. It's a whole roofing exercise that had to take place. Therefore, the school could not remain in the compound. We had to actually decant the school, and there are a number of schools in that condition where we have to decant the school to be able to work on the building. And so this is really par for the course. This is the landscape that we deal with in terms of school infrastructure. In the vacation period, what we try to do is to increase the amount of work we can do, number of projects we can do at a school. So if there's a project that has to be done that really would require the school to close, if the school can continue to operate during the term, we would allow the school to continue to operate and try to deal with that project during the vacation time. So we balance it that way so you don't have to lose time for teaching and learning. But of course, if it comes to the point where we have to close the school, well, that would take place there. So school infrastructure repair is ongoing. It ramps up during the vacation time, but it's ongoing. So in many cases, what we do is we would adjust the work schedule so that the work can continue on an afternoon and on a weekend if the school continues during the day. That's the compromise we make so that the school can go on. So at all costs, what we try to prioritize is not closing a school. So if it can't go all day, then we go on rotation if we have to close a particular section of the school, but that's even better than closing a school completely and, us children being not able to go and do teaching and learning. However, in some cases, it might be faster to close the school for 2 days, do the work quickly and get the students back. So it's really a very complex interplay that we look at on a case-by-case basis. And of course, the priority is to ensure educational continuity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you, Permanent Secretaries. Thank you, DPS. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, technical officers from repairs, IT, and other sections of the Ministry of Education for your support. Members of the media, thanks for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, Trinidad and Tobago, thanks for watching. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
TTT News, delivering more news more often to more people. Follow us on social media at TTT Live Online. Log on to www.ttt.live.
Be watching Let's Talk Tobago on TTT, Sundays 9:30 a.m. and rebroadcast Tuesdays 8 p.m.
Music is a piece of art that goes into the ears and straight to the heart. Music is also considered the international language that crosses all barriers and unites all cultures. The Cross Caribbean Countdown is a popular fan-driven music countdown show that features the hottest lineup of Caribbean stars and music. It's the iron of your soul. It's the iron of your soul. While spotlighting Caribbean businesses. Thursdays at 10 p.m. and Fridays at 9 p.m. exclusively on TTT with yours truly, Junior K. We are something special, very special. And remember to keep your tempo up.
I want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscast and contribute to provide alternative views, a source of the latest world events.
Good morning and welcome back to the Now Morning Show, Tobago Thursdays, where we're talking about free eye testing for Tobago diabetics as Diabetic Month continues. Joining us via Zoom is Ms. Leanne Lazarus, the Program Manager for the Diabetic Eye Screening Program, and we welcome you to the Now Morning Show. Good morning, Leanne.
Hi, good morning.
Happy to have you here, at least virtually anyways.
So great to be here.
And I'm going to jump right in because this one is a big deal. Free eye screening, specifically in the for diabetics in Tobago, is a large undertaking. Tell me a little bit about the organization and the initiative in terms of when it started.
Okay, so I work for the Trinidad Eye Hospital. So we started a diabetic eye screening program in 2018. We started coming to Tobago in the last 4 years. So this would be our 4th year in Tobago. So thanks to FarmTech Caribbean, we were able to come a little bit longer this time, do a little bit more screenings, thanks to their sponsorship. We've had one screening so far yesterday in Plymouth Road, and we will be continuing to Keenan today, and then Charlottesville, and also we've added Roxborough on Friday as well.
Nice. Extensions are a good thing because that means you're going to reach more people, but it does mean that they need to schedule an appointment. So is that still open then? Calls and registration can be done?
Our Bon Accord location is overbooked for today, but we definitely have space in Charlottesville and Roxborough for tomorrow. So anyone interested could call or WhatsApp the numbers that are on the screen there, and they could definitely let us know that they're interested, and someone will contact you today.
Now, in terms of the importance of that eye screening, we understand that persons who are diabetic have a higher possibility of having